All right, we are on air. This is going to be a treat. Two people I really like who are really thoughtful about the space. We have Jeet, founder and CEO at Kinfolk, building AI agents for HR, like HRBP, etc. And Dave Carhart, who is wears a lot of hats. Everything from compensation expert to tools expert, has built a lot of really deep, meaningful AI agents for himself and for his clients as well. So we'll get a pretty broad lens into AI agents and how to kind of really take advantage of it in 2026. So welcome to the webinar.
Great to be here, Harris. Good to see you again, Jeet.
Likewise, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Maybe let's do a quick round of intros. Dave, maybe you go first and share a little bit about you for the audience, what you do.
Yeah, so spent my career in HR, started in big tech at HP years ago, and then moved into high growth tech, led the people team at two different startups, including Lattice. And now I consult with companies really focused on compensation and AI.
Amazing.
Awesome.
And Dave's based in the Bay Area in Burlingame, right? Not too far from where I am.
Belmont, one of the other.
Oh, sorry. I always get this.
But I have sabbatical and move coming up. So next time we talk, it might be coming to you live from Spain.
Oh, wow.
You'll be closer to me. I'm in London, the UK. I have to now specify London, UK, as opposed to London, Ontario, after having visited Toronto recently. But living in London, most of our partners and customers though are in the US. We spend a lot of time over there. And Kinfolk is a AI service desk, primarily from people operations perspective. Then also it includes IT and operations flows, because the way that we think about it is an employee doesn't really see the boundaries between HR and IT and payroll and workspace. They just have a problem and need it solved. They really, really don't want to create a ticket and then wait for a long time. So that's what we try and solve. One place that they can go in Slack and have a conversation and run AI agents and get stuff done.
Amazing. And many of us know us, but Candor IQ, we are AI-powered compensation workforce planning solution. So compensation agents, HR agents, finance agents, all kind of embedded in the context of these deep domain-specific workflows. Excited to get started, but let's start at the very top, like with some definitions, right? Because there's a lot of lingo being thrown, and it changes every other week as well. It's what are AI agents? How is that different from Copilot and some of the other terms? Maybe, Jeet, I'll float this to you first.
Yeah, sure thing. So, and there are a few definitions here, so I'd love to hear your thoughts too. The way I see agents is, an agent is a large language model still, but the difference is it has a goal, it has the ability to plan, and it can connect to different tools, which means that it then has the ability to take action across multi-step workflows without you needing to hold its hand, because it can plan itself. So that's kind of how I see it. The clue is kind of in the name. It has agency to be able to do things that you want it to do, whereas more of an assistant or a conversational chat, it can go really, really far. Like Claude is incredible, Claude Chat, but that's where it stops. It can still do research, but it can't take action in your Asanas or your Mondays, or can't send emails for you, that type of thing. So that's how I see the difference.
I think of the difference between like chat and agent as chat is you're jumping into a conference room with a really smart coworker, and you're going to jam on a topic, but everything's kind of contained in that room. An agent is you come out of the room and you send that coworker off with your computer to go work on a bunch of things and come back to you when it's done. So that's the kind of fundamental difference that I think about. And it's been a really big change in how far that's gone.
Yeah, I think both of you have, the way I internalize it's the same definition, like framed differently, right? And just to add more complexity to this, like I agree with everything you said, and I also think about the fact that with agents you can entrust them to deliver outcomes, right? And like do I think, Jeet, you said not just one task, but maybe a series of tasks as well, and like that are stitched together, right? Maybe like a projects or something like that, if we can use that framing. So versus a co-pilot, like you needed a human to be in the loop every step of the way. and I know we're going to get into it. Just because it's an AI agent doesn't mean that humans are not necessary. If anything, even more so than before. But like in a co-pilot, someone like sitting next to you, like a passenger in a car, and kind of assisting you. I don't know if passengers ever assist a driver. I have that debate with my partner, but let's just run with that analogy. Awesome. I think that's a pretty good like establishment of like what the definition is. And so over the course of last year, we've shifted from AI tooling to AI agents, right? So what does that really mean? Like one of the things I think about is like I think Dave, you mentioned like a chat bot is like a meeting room where you ask a question, you get a response, and now we're in the world of workflows. And then yeah, so like how do you think about like what's changed even the last 6 months? I know a lot's changed
Yeah.
last
So
year.
if I think about AI 6 to 12 months ago, and how I would get good output from it, I might first just give it a prompt. And
Yeah.
then I would try it again and say, all right, now before you answer, think about the best way to answer this. And then it would answer. And then I would say, all right, now critique your answer and give me a revised version, right? So I would start adding in like kind of all of these different steps. And the move to agents in a lot of cases is kind of bundling that all into sort of a series of automatic loops that the models and the tools will do. The other change is that I would so frequently run into issues of, hey, that's a great answer. Like, produce a document that I can download. Oh,
Yeah.
well, I can't do that, right? So the other change in the last 12 months is the emergence of all of these tools, connections to other applications. Not that everything is frictionless, but a lot of the barriers to really getting output, like and real work done. Hey, I want this thing to live in Slack. I want a document output. I want you to do that in Excel, whatever it happens to be. A lot of those barriers have broken down.
Yeah, it does feel exactly what you said, Dave. I love that analogy, actually. You leave the room and it goes and does stuff for you. And because of those connectors, that's been the big difference. Because yeah, you're absolutely right. We were kind of doing things in silo, and in some ways, we use Claude Cowork, for example. It is still a personal productivity tool. It's on your local machine and it can do things for you. But now that it has those connectors, it can now go into Google Drive. It can go into my meeting note taker, and it can look at the last 3 months, 6 months worth. I burnt a lot of tokens doing this. Do not do this. Give it a better prompt. But it went through all of that, and then it was able to generate insights that went into marketing copy, that went into Google Drive, and then it also gave itself instructions that then also lives in Google Drive, which means that the rest of the team can then use those to be able to upload to their Claude Cowork. And we are also sharing skills via Google Drive. Right? So all of that has shifted so much from like, oh, here's a copy and paste job of how, or here's like a custom GPT that I've used, to actually going into your systems now, which has been phenomenal.
Yeah. I think there's two examples that you gave there that I think are just really good to put a point on, Jeet. At an individual level, that pattern of transcribing meetings
Yeah.
and then direct access
Mm.
in one of the tools to all of those transcripts for insights has been one of the most kind of powerful individual productivity tools for me. And then at a team level or an organizational level, what you mentioned there is what I see organizations who are the most ahead on AI doing, is building up company level repository of information about the company, the strategy, like all of this deep information that they can collect and provide, rather than every individual trying to come up with that for their own Claude Cowork or ChatGPT instance on their own.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've recently done. I mean, there's a lot of individual things that I do, like my meeting note summaries and things like that. But yeah, Dave, I loved your examples. Like now on the customer support side, we like pipe in not just the transcript of the conversation, but like flags, sentiments, alerts, things like that, and it's triggering these different workflows and like awareness and helping us take actions. And it's really started transforming our ability to kind of like serve customers without needing a human going through all the notes. Can you imagine, like, okay, what's the sentiment, what's the help, what's the priority, let's create tickets, let's create notes, send the right summary to the right person. All of those things for every single meeting are for the most part like automated, which is amazing. And then like even internally, and Jeet, curious your take too. Yes, we have AI agents for our customers, but we also use AI infrastructure internally, like on our platform. Like like getting data from different systems is really key for our business, as is yours. Like whether it's payroll or financial systems, we run, and they're garbage in, garbage out with AI. So like we run agents on the back end that are stitching together and reviewing customer data every night. So it's not just a MuleSoft integration. It's that plus like doing some of the cleaning, structuring, and flagging, which is a multi-billion-dollar business, as Dave knows.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And something you said there is really key as well. Another change is that you can put it on a schedule. So every morning you can wake up with what's happening in AI and HR as an example. It can then go and run some analysis of what are the new tools that are coming out. It can look at your own call transcripts, and then it can summarize and find the gaps between what you're hearing from customers and what's happening in the market, as an example. We've also got agents that after a call with a potential customer, it goes ahead and it reviews your calls and says, hey, you could have done this bit a little bit better, this bit a little bit better. But then it also goes into HubSpot and updates that for you, and it generates the email. We don't yet want it to send the emails directly. We should have the humans still review all of that stuff. Yeah. But at least we're not spending time, as you said, Harris, going into the different systems and taking a person's name from one part of the Kanban board into another part of the Kanban board. That's what is helping us with.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that's helped there too is the coding ability has gotten so much better. And yes, I think people who aren't engineers, and I include myself in this because I'm no engineer, underestimate how broadly applicable that is. Because in the end, a big Excel model is just a whole bunch of kind of code strung together, right? Yeah. Or, an integration, right? Suddenly an integration can be built. There's so much that can be done, even if the front end, what a non-technical user might see, isn't any code. That ability for AI in the background to build those things up has been huge.
And Jeet, I also liked your example of like the feedback loop. So like it made me think about performance reviews as well. But like there's a near continuous feedback loop. It has some downsides for sure too, but at least like you get that feedback as an employee, and you can like iterate and self-learn and kind of evolve, versus like having to have a sit down with your manager and kind of going through some of that process. So it just made me think about how fast now humans can learn and have to learn and evolve and iterate too, because there's kind of no hiding anymore. That's where my mind went with that.
Yeah. Thinking. I mean, the key to what Dave was talking to earlier is having a shared understanding of who is doing the critiquing. And if you don't already have collaboration and input from your manager to understand what they value and what's important to the company and what are the objectives, then you don't really have a benchmark, and therefore ChatGPT or Claude also doesn't have benchmarks. So it's going to be like, this is awesome, here's a 10 out of 10, but actually the values and objectives may be super different. So having that as a foundation is going to be really important to do any of the stuff that we're talking about.
Yeah, that's a good call out. Maybe kind of stepping back. So like, we've all progressed in our AI journeys over the last 12 months. Dave, I'll start with you. Like, what AI agents have you built? How did you learn to build, experiment? Let's go into the kind of some of the tactics of, figuring this out.
So I learned by tinkering. I try things. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. A lot of times the first time around that I'll do something, it'll take a lot longer. And I just try and lean into that. And the teams that I work with that get the most traction and adoption across their teams are the ones that cultivate that mindset of experimentation and trying and learning. In terms of what I've built and where I've gotten kind of the most the most use. So it's been a pretty broad range. I mentioned transcripts plus agents that analyze all of my transcripts for insights. I've done something similar with a daily sort of research bot. It goes through all of the newsletters and marketing material that I get, and it pulls out the key insights that I might really want to see, but very like hyper personalized, right? It'll come back, it'll say, hey, I saw this piece in one newsletter. It looks like it might be really relevant for this one company that you're working with, and here's why. So that sort of like hyper personalization. And then I would say that my work, how I actually get work done, has transformed more in the past like 5 months than it has in the past 5 years. And I mean that very literally, not at all hype. I would say I am primarily operating through AI tools now as my drafter and editor and reviser for decks, spreadsheets. And what I've been finding is that the more that I do that, the more value I get, because you can now build any of those repeatable workflows into skills. So everything that you're doing, you are piece by piece building up context for that model you're working with, repeatable workflows, building blocks that you have for the future. So that's been just transformative for how I work.
And yeah, that's awesome, Dave. Can you maybe like diving in, like give an example perhaps of like something that you've done this and what skills you built and how did you do it? Like
So all right, so I was working with a client, and the reporting capabilities in their HRIS are pretty weak, right?
Yeah.
And they're not looking for the moon. They want to know things like, what's our attrition? Let me do just some breakdowns of headcount, these sorts of things. And so for a number of months, I had been building a Google Sheet. I'm good with spreadsheets. I put in a tab of export from the HRIS. I created a bunch of pivot tables and did a bunch of formatting work. But it was a decent amount of work, and it was limited, right? There's only so much I can do in terms of spreadsheets. So I worked with Claude, with Cowork. I gave it that spreadsheet I built as an example. I said, look, help me build something much better. Yeah. And so I did that through Claude. Once I got to the end of it, I turned that into a skill. And now I can drop in the latest HRIS export, and in 5 to 10 minutes, it will build out this massive, beautiful spreadsheet with all sorts of visualizations and bells and whistles and things that I never could have done on my own. So like that's a very real example of something that I couldn't have done 6 months ago. The integrations wouldn't have been there. Skills as like a reusable asset to make that time investment worthwhile for the future wouldn't have been there. But that's one specific example that has mattered a lot for me.
Yeah, I think that's a great example, kind of a full walkthrough of all the things you did and how that's changed over time as well. What about you, Jeet? Like, any examples that come to mind, like as you've been on your AI journey as an individual and as a founder?
Yeah, and it is slightly different from when you look at it from an individual perspective and then from a broader company perspective. And what we're hearing from a lot of folks is actually, no matter how many courses and those kind of things you do, the biggest driver of AI fluency has been hackathons. And I can see Dave nodding because, yeah, we've spoken about this before too, right? Like you have to allow people to fail and be comfortable to burn some tokens So I think that's one thing to kind of keep in mind as we talk about doing these things, because there's always kind of a hesitation of like, well, should I be doing this, or should I be doing my quote unquote actual work? It's like, well, this is part of your actual work now, and actually we need to create some space to level everybody up so that you can then experiment. And kind of through that tinkering process, similar to Dave over the weekends, we've changed a lot of things. I used to have Google Alerts set for what's happening in the market, and then newsletters that were coming in at random times in my Gmail, and my Sundays were to go through those alerts and newsletters. Whereas right now, Claude can look at all of that and then send me a little summary. So that's been a big change for me, rather than trying to get to inbox zero. The other thing that's happening is I need to ask less of, hey, what's happening to engineers, or hey, what's happening to our customer success team, because I can pull that data directly from the system, from our shortcut ticketing. And this is something that has been set up by my co-founder and CTO, Kim, because I just kept on asking him questions. You were like, dude, stop. Here's a release note weekly bot that's going to send you what we do. And and so that's been a real game changer, because now there's clarity across the board, and we have access to customer data, and we can map those things together. And then the other thing that's happened is that previously, in order to go from what the vision is, whether it's a dashboard, whether it's a requirement from a customer, to getting something in front of them, that would take weeks. Whereas right now, all of these examples actually sound like me annoying engineering less, but right now, I can knock something up
I
really
feel you on
quickly.
that one, Jeet.
Yeah, and I can really quickly get feedback, and then create a more structured requirements doc for the team that's going to build the real value. So those are some of the ways that I just have more access without going digging, and I can do a lot more to enable other people in the business, which has been a real game changer.
Yeah, that's also a really good kind of practical and tactical example. I think you both were like touching on this, so let's shift here. Like, how do you get teams or clients to use AI and use it effectively? That's something, like more and more I see, like if I look internally, like our teams are using, but I see there's some people are really effective at it, and some people are like still like ramping up on it. So it's even a journey for us. But like, yeah, how do you both see this happening, and how do you drive
I
it
see it
forward?
as I see it as three things: leadership, support, investment in tooling, and space to try and fail. And when those things are in place, it takes time, it takes cycles, but people make progress. When companies expect everything is there and it's perfect on day one, rather than needing to learn because this is a new technology, then they make much less progress.
Okay, so that's one. Leadership support. Sorry, I missed the other ones, Dave. So
Investment in tooling
investment in
and
tooling, creating.
space to try and fail. The second two rely on leadership support, but leadership support in the visible, like, kind of, this is something that we endorse as a company, like the permission structure.
Mm. Yeah, and even going as far as to say, here's something that I did, and here's what didn't work out, and here's what did work out, rather than just saying, go ahead and try yourself. Actually showing people, because we had some conversations like, hey, we want to implement AI, and it's okay, great. Do you have a Claude Cowork subscription? And they go, no. It's like, well, that may be a good place to start, so you can at least be more confident when you're rolling something like this out. Yeah. And I think the other thing is, everything that Dave is touching on, and going back to my previous point around hackathons, that's been like the number one way to get that going. And we've heard examples where they'd create a Slack channel and say, hey, anything that you're doing with AI, please share. And there was hesitation around, am I going to look stupid? Is this even good enough? Am I doing it the right way? After the hackathon, that Slack channel blew up so much, they had to mute it because people were just so excited to share what they were building. And then they had to think about, okay, whoa, now we have to get some structure in there. But that's a really good problem to have. And I think the other thing that they did really well was before the hackathon, they looked at the specific workflows. Like, what are the units of work that we think what are the ones that we're repeating, and therefore could we automate this, as opposed to something that actually requires human input. And because they did that work before, they did a training session beforehand to make sure that people had a certain level of comfort with engaging with those AI tools. when they went into the hackathon, they had a very clear idea of these are the problems that we're solving. This is what's solvable in the first place, and here's how I can input into that. And then when you layer on the permission structure that Dave was talking about, it was just is gold. So I think that's kind of some of the ways that you can really drive up the usage.
I think that's a great summary. Yeah, like it's like agile methodology. First you have to create the like leadership empowerment, create the space to learn, experiment, set boundaries and guidelines, set goals. It's all the things that you need to do now, but you have to do even more so in the world of AI, because yes, token spend can run away really quickly, and or you can like solve the wrong problems in the wrong way, and so but that's a good summary. Go ahead, Dave.
One tactical suggestion. A lot of times people will have friction because either, at least today, they can't get the right data into their AI easily, or there is concern or uncertainty about what data can go in. And so one of the just easy tricks is create a fake data set, right? You can ask any AI, create me 10,000 rows of Salesforce or this or that data with some set of columns. And then you can go run your experiments and identify, all right, hey, is there potentially real value here? And if there is, okay, now there's a better basis for going back and working through whatever IT or legal concerns or whatever technical needs. So that's just like a tactical trick that has been really helpful in a lot of places.
That's a good suggestion too. And so let me ask this question in a different way as well. So, Dave, you work with many clients, and so do you, I guess, like deploying your tool. And the question I'm asking is like, how do you get clients to successfully deploy custom built or third party AI tools and drive the right adoption? I think there's a lot of lessons there for organizations to kind of carry forward as well, whether it's build, buy, partner, whatever. Like, how do you actually drive this to be successful? And so maybe Jeet, we'll start with you if you have any thoughts.
Oh man,
I
how
think
much
you put
time
a
do you
whole
have?
white paper around this too. So
Yeah, and you know what? That I'd say that white paper is not out of date because things are moving so quickly that we probably need to do another version. And frankly, and interestingly, the way to drive AI adoption is so human. It's been a kind of a pleasant surprise. The concept of forward deployed engineers, and it requires a lot of enablement. So we work really closely with our customers, and we look at the data, and we build those initial workflows for them so they can then copy and paste and then templatize. A lot of it is before even thinking about driving adoption within the business for the employees. It's about driving adoption within the HR teams themselves. And these are new concepts, and when they're rolling things out, it can be a pretty stressful time because you're just about to impact every single employee and they're going to see this new thing. And like with any change management, you want to be able to reduce that risk. So we support them and work alongside them. But then there's also something called a playground in our app where they can test everything out before anything touches an employee. So that's helped to alleviate some of that tension. And then the other thing is it's like any kind of change management, and it's been kind of interesting to hear that HR's role seems to be when there's company-wide rollout, they're the most equipped to understand what that change management should look like, whether they want to or not, because it's such a human thing in reality. So we look at the numbers, we look at the adoption rates, and then we almost work in sprints. And we say, okay, this is what the baseline is. What are some of the ways that we want to move it forward? Through our app, you can send out messages. It's not just like a service desk in that sense. And with that, you can then see, okay, we made this change, we enabled this workflow. How did that work? And initially, all of this is based on, to your point, Harris, being having a more of an iterative mindset and being more product minded, which means that it kind of, again, alleviates that pressure of I have to get everything right when it goes live. And to say, I want to co-build this with you guys, with all the employees. It is a large language model. Some things may be a little bit flaky. Here's what we know doesn't work. Here's what we know does work. Let's look at the data to see what you find useful, and then we'll build alongside that. So that mindset before anything else is probably the most important factor to kind of reset expectations before we go live.
I love that. Those are a lot of good tactics and advice there. Dave, what about you? Like, I know you're helping like your clients like build, buy, partner, but then like how do you help them drive adoption and really
Yeah.
make these tools successful?
So yeah, I mean, hearing the question a lot of, okay, do you build or do you buy? It's, I think, less of a dichotomy than people might think going in, and that's for a couple of reasons. One is that AI is going to transform like everything without being too hyperbolic, and so there's going to be space for both. A second is what you were saying, Jeet. There's actually it's really similar skills. Like whether you're building or you're buying, you're transforming workflows, right? And ultimately, it's not about the specific tool or the tech. It's about what outcome are you trying to get to, and also what human changes and emotions and like struggles and journeys do you need in order to get there. And so that's something that's really similar whether you're building or buying. The third way that I think is less of a dichotomy is I actually see that a lot of times it's the companies that have done the most to build that are actually most successful in buying, because they've refined their own understanding much more about what the technology is good at or not good at, where they have run up against. They've seen both the potential and also the limits of homegrown tooling. So it's sometimes not a either or, but where are you doing each and where do they relate to each other?
Good observations. Maybe that leads me to my next question, which is around using the AI agents to do decision making, right? Like it's moving more towards the intelligence layer. There are a lot more things to be thoughtful and careful about. So, like, yeah, Dave and Jeet, do you guys have thoughts around that? Like, when can you rely on the agent? When do you have to be involved? Like, how do you think about that piece?
My favorite place to start is actually is critique, right? Not make this decision for me, but here's what I'm thinking about as a decision or a strategy or deck or a proposal, critique it. And like that has been a really good method, especially when if there's a team that is concerned about hallucinations or handing over decision control. Like I think that's been a really useful place to start when you're first getting into it.
Yeah, and almost kind of looking at the and I think this is where you're kind of touching on, Dave, which is to give the AI the ability to critique your decision framework as opposed to make the decision itself. And that's a really way of kind of like a really good way of tightening it up. But I do think, yeah, the decision kind of still lands with the human, at least in our world. But you can absolutely speed up that decision by giving you the right information and making sure that the way that you're making the decision is more robust.
I think that, yeah, that's a good framing as well, Jeet. And so like from there, like in terms of like making using AI agents for decision support, Jeet, do you like also provide like a confidence interval or something like that? Like how do you kind of because there's like a whole spectrum of how accurate an answer might be or decision recommendation might be versus not, and so how do you think about that piece?
Yeah, so we have made a decision to only pull in information within our product that the organization gives access to. So that means that we reduce hallucinations as close to zero as possible because we're not bringing in external information that may then muddy the data lake of the company. Now, that does obviously mean that there's a higher chance when someone asks a question that doesn't fit with the information provided, whether that's the training or the knowledge or the information in the HR systems, that it's just going to say, "I don't know."
Yeah.
So that is more kind of the way that we manage trust. And the other way that we say when we're surfacing something always go back to the source. So here's where we found the information. And if we found the information in multiple places, to say, here's where we found the multiple pieces of information. And the other piece that we do is we constrain, similar to how you might expect in ChatGPT or in Claude, you have custom GPTs. So you constrain the context. So we have assistants and we have agents, which do separate things, and they can talk to each other, but an assistant will help you to make a decision or generate some content. And when it goes into that assistant mode, it's only looking at a specific corpus of materials, which again means that it's only going to use that, and therefore the confidence level of how it's going to answer is going to be higher versus trying to just generally look up knowledge and make decisions or suggest decisions off the back of that.
Yeah, I think that's a good summary, Jeet. So similar sentiment on our end. It's data segmented to what the customer wants it to have access to, custom skills that they've talked about, custom agents as well, especially like if you're doing like compensation calculations and stuff like that. There's room for hallucination. So like we have like very specific ways of doing like geo-based pay calculations. So it's always consistent. Jeet, I also like the idea of not being a black box and saying here's the answer, or like, but really kind of like providing. It's like a kid going, like showing homework to the teacher. Like it's now not just about like what's the answer, but like how did you come to it, and so like doing as much of that as possible as well. Yeah, so like those things definitely kind of resonate as well, especially in the world of HR tech, or where like the answer is not just the necessary thing, but also how did you get there, and like what the frameworks were, et cetera, too. So because you have to be able to justify and explain these decisions, not just like take this answer and go.
I think there's also some places that analysis is now economical, sort of cheap enough in terms of time that it can be done when it couldn't be before. And I'll give you a specific example. Compensation. We know that choosing your peer group matters a ton.
Yeah.
The way that most companies choose their peer group is sort of say, well, what's our, how big are we right now? And maybe who do we think we're trying to hire? Well, one of the things now that I've been doing is pulling out reams of data from whatever the ATS a company is in, and I can run a huge amount of analysis on that. For each candidate, go and find the companies they were at and information from here and information from there. Going through all of that before in data that wasn't set up to actually tell me what the real talent market of a company was just wasn't possible. Yeah. With AI, I can go and do that. And that's a whole new like set of insights that I can add to that decision-making process and guide a company on that I couldn't do even just 6 months ago.
Yeah, that's a good point. And so like, Dave, what does that mean like also for leaders and decision-making for them? Like, how do you think about that?
I think everyone is thinking that AI is just pure efficiency and time saving. Yeah. And every time I really get into something, yes, there's an aspect of that, but it starts to unlock all of these opportunities, higher quality, better decisions. And when it comes down to it, then a lot of the time, whatever time I'm saving on just automating some drudgery work, I'm plowing back into really advancing the quality of something. And, maybe it's, instead of just build me a deck where I thought it would build me a deck faster, I say, build me 5 different versions of the deck. And then I'm going through 5 different versions and I'm getting much higher quality output. And I'm really happy with that trade. It's different from some of the value that I thought I was going to get going into something.
I heard this. I can't go to the source, but I heard this from like a VC podcast where they're talking about X-rays, where people thought like the X-ray industry would be demolished with AI because like MRI scans are one of the first things that AI does really well. But now people are actually saying like, instead of it costing me with US healthcare, or I don't know how much it is with the UK healthcare, like it used to cost me this much. Now I can do it on an annual basis. It's right. Like the economics of some of these things has changed, and it's actually like expanding the pie of what you can do and how often you do those things too.
Yeah. If you were, go ahead.
No, I was going to say you're right, Dave. I think I'm working more rather than less these days because like it's just that the time is going less on the administrative stuff and more on the higher quality human to human decision making inputs for their work across the business. Yeah, I think just the roles are gonna. Yeah, some roles may be challenged at the junior level, but I think a lot of the roles will just be reframed, and we may end up working harder rather than less.
Yeah, Gene, I feel I feel like I'm in the same boat. I don't think I'm or the teams were like worked less. It's just we've shifted the focus to
Yes.
more strategy, more relation, more thoughtfulness versus like some of the more menial tasks. So absolutely, I think like, at least at Western America or corporate America or West, like it's not like you're gonna go on the beach. Maybe Dave might be in Spain.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
It does open up that option as well, I guess. But yeah, like I don't think corporate America is like moving to that model in general. It's we'll squeeze the last dollar out of every person. That's how we work.
Yes.
So let's do rapid fire questions, and then because we have like 5 or 6 minutes left, and then we'll like closing remarks. Jeet, we'll go with you first. So what would you be wary of when people are like looking to the AI? Where should you draw the line, or where should you be more careful? Same question for both of you.
Yeah. I think the final action when it impacts a human being. So I think if you're updating a system, that's okay. But for me, still, and I think a lot of salespeople will disagree with me, but sending that email, having that piece of communication, I think that's where I would draw the line. That last piece of action, I think, is where we're not there yet. I think that's where humans need to step in.
Dave,
Yeah, for me, like I still think expertise matters. It's very easy for AI to be plausibly and confidently wrong. And when I have expertise in an area, I have just an intuitive sense of where to push back. And it's just that's a really important skill. So I think that I make sure not to trust with areas that I don't have expertise in. I start to ask it about, explain this physics thing to me. I put I'm very careful with that because I don't know physics. So yeah, that's what it is for me.
Another rapid fire question that comes to mind. How are roles in general evolving with AI? Are they becoming more generalist or more specialist? These are not rapid fire at all. These are like I realize I've played the game wrong.
What do you think, Dave?
So I don't know the exact answer to that question, but drawing a little bit on what we were talking about just recently, if you were an accountant in the late 70s, early 80s, as the first spreadsheets were getting introduced, you would have thought that the employment in accounting and financial type occupations was about to go to zero because all of the work by hand was just going to be a spreadsheet. And what happened instead is that because spreadsheets and doing that drudgery work of hand calculating everything was suddenly automated, actually there was an enormous rise in all sorts of new types of jobs, financial analysis and modeling and things that used that as input. And so the world of people who work with spreadsheets totally changed, but employment went up. So people should be thinking about, all right, how does, what emerges, what are the opportunities as certain parts of my work get automated?
Yeah, and I think to your point around generalist or specialist, there's this concept of T-shaped people, which you guys will be aware of, and then there's this concept of M-shaped people. And I think with AI, we are allowing humans to move more towards becoming M-shaped as opposed to T-shaped and go quicker and deeper into certain subject matters. I agree fully with Dave that I'll never be a physicist, and therefore I don't think I'll ever be able to become a really good physicist even with AI because you still need that expertise. And I think the future roles, they're going to value even more so folks who are experts at particular things, and those who are dialed into their humanity, like empathy and judgment, creativity. Those things are going to matter so much more because you're going to be able to automate a lot. Therefore, being able to drill down into a couple of those, moving from T to M, is going to help people stand out, I feel.
Can you give us the breakdown of T and M shaped in case folks haven't heard?
Yeah, sure. So a T-shaped person is someone who's generally okay at certain things, and they're really, really good at one particular thing. Whereas an M-shaped person is someone who's good at more than one thing. So in the world of, let's say, product management, in the traditional days, you had a product manager who was good at product management, and they'd kind of get enough of engineering and design to be able to have that conversation. Now those roles are starting to merge, and engineers can start to be really good product managers, and designers can start to really good engineers. And so that's kind of when you start to get those M-shaped people who are almost like, I wouldn't say superhumans, but getting there in their certain fields.
That's a good example too, there, Jeet. Okay, so closing remarks, team. Either you can answer with like something that we didn't cover that you want to get across, or if you think we've covered all the key things, like what is like the one key takeaway that people should go out with from this conversation?
People are further ahead than they feel, but further behind than they think. And what I mean by that is that when I talk to HR folks, I mean, folks are scared. There's like an intense FOMO of like, I am behind, everyone is doing all these things because they see whatever, demos someone put out on their LinkedIn feed. And the reality is that actually, no, there's a lot of messy middle out there that we're all in. On the other hand, when we do surveys, when we ask people at companies, how often are you in AI? Like, how much are you using it? Everyone's like, oh yeah, I'm in AI every day. And then you drill into it a little bit, and it turns out they're using like 5 to 10% of the capabilities. They just haven't even begun to touch what is possible in the tools that they already have.
Yeah, it's so true. There's a lot of noise out there, and I mean, social media is really good at making us feel like we're behind. We suck at everything. But yeah, the best way to combat that is just to go and dip your toes into it, try it, burn some tokens. It's okay. Like there's a real like, hey, what's the ROI of this AI that we're doing? We're not there to like, you can't answer that question just yet because there's a few steps before that, and therefore we need to look at leading indicators rather than a lagging indicator of what impact it's having on our OpEx. So yeah, I'd say just go and try it, burn some tokens, ignore the noise, and give it a go.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I think we covered a lot of ground today, from your AI journeys and the evolution over the last 6 to 12 months, some of the strategies, some of the tactics, practical examples, build by, creating the right environment as well for organizations to be successful, driving change management. So much ground covered. Dave, Jeet, thank you so much. Appreciate it. And we'll share links. So if people are interested in connecting with Jeet and Kinfolk and Dave, I know our team will kind of share. Like, please do. I know Dave and Jeet are always super friendly and happy to jam about all things AI and the people space. So thank you both for being here.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Bye.